everyone, it's Lisa here with you today on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. For my video today, I thought I would have a play with the absolutely gorgeous All You Need Is Love stamp set, and I'm going to be doing some ink smooshing, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways of doing that. And I am going to be making two separate cards, so I show you a slightly different technique on each card, and I use different colours for my background on each of the cards. And by the end of the video, I did actually prefer one card over the other, but the card that I wasn't so keen on, I think I could have made it different in several different ways, and I'm going to talk about those as we go through the video. So we're going to start off with the ink smooshing. I'm starting off with a panel of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. This isn't a watercolour cardstock, it's a cardstock that can actually take only a little bit of water, but I'm not going to be saturating my ink, so it should work out well for this technique. I've put some picked raspberry distressing down on my glass mat, and I'm taking a piece of acetate and I just roll that through the ink before I bring it across to the cardstock. I'm just going to place that acetate down and press it down in places just to make sure that I transfer the ink onto the cardstock and I get the kind of saturation that I want. And I repeat the process another time just to add some ink in that top left hand corner. And I clean off my glass mat now, and I go ahead and I heat set that first layer of pink. You could actually create more panels with the leftover ink as you go, but for the purposes of the video, I just cleaned my mat in between each colour. So I'm now going in with some cracked pistachio, and I'm going to go through the exact same process of adding it onto my glass mat, spritzing with water, and then bringing that over on the acetate to the cardstock. My third colour is squeezed lemonade. And at the moment, I'm really happy with how this panel is looking. I really like those three colours together. You do have to be a little bit careful with the pink and the green. Because I heat set the layers in between, I didn't really end up with any kind of muddy colour. But I now go in and add a fourth colour, and this is Peacock Feathers, again a distress ink. And I think I probably shouldn't have added that fourth colour. I think that in the end it just gave too many colours and it ended up looking a little bit messy. Although I do love the four colours, I think that I probably should have limited it to three, and that's how the panel is looking at the moment. I'm just fussing about a little bit before I set that aside to dry. And now we're going to go ahead and start on our second card. So again, I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm just going to use three colours of distress inks on this panel. So I'm starting off with Salty Ocean. I place some down on my glass mat, spritz it with water and pick it up with the acetate and transfer it to the cardstock exactly the same way that I did in the first for the first card. But for this card, I'm actually not going to heat set the layers in between. I'm actually just going to go ahead and let those inks run into each other. And this is the technique that I think I end up preferring at the end of creating the two cards. You get a much more organic blend with your colours. So I'm going in with my second colour now. This is Mowed Lawn, and I'm just placing that down in a couple of areas, and I'm just allowing those inks to blend with each other. You definitely get a different look every time you do the ink smooshing process. You never quite know what you're going to get. And for someone that likes to control their ink blending, this can be a little bit terrifying to me, but I do enjoy the process of ink smooshing, and I do like that you have that uncertainty in how it's going to look at the end. So just going in now with my final colour, which is Squeezed Lemonade. So now, as I was looking at the panel, I do love those mix of colours and I love the way they have all blended together, but I felt that the blue got lost, so I put some more Salty Ocean down on my mat and I tried to add that into the mix, but it just kept re-blending and I was thinking, that's not working. What am I going to do to get more blue into that background? It just kept getting lost in the green. So in the end, I dried the panel off and I went back in with some blue over the top, and I felt that that was more successful. It just stopped it blending into the green. And I'm still faffing here, adding a little bit of blue into that bottom right hand corner. So now we're going to go ahead and stamp our image over the top, and I'm going to place a MISTI sticky mat into my MISTI, and I'm going to press my panel down on that. Now, because I'd heat set this one a lot, it was quite warped and it didn't want to stick on its own, so I ended up needing to add some foam tape just to secure that onto the sticky mat. So taking that image now out of its packaging, and I'm just going to place that down over the top of the ink smooshing, and I'm going to stamp that down with a black pigment ink. I'm using a black pigment ink because I want to make sure that I get a really clear image over the top of this ink smooshing, and I also want to be able to add some clear embossing powder, so this ink stays wet enough for me to do that. I do actually stamp it 3 times to make sure that it's really dark before I go ahead and add that clear embossing powder and heat set that, and I go through the same process with the second panel. Now that I've finished the stamping, I'm actually going to trim those panels down slightly with a rectangle die, so just taping that down, and I'm going to run that through my Gemini Junior off camera. Now it's time to finish with the sentiments. So both sentiments I use are from the All You Need Is Love stamp set. I've stamped them with black pigment ink and I've added clear embossing powder over the top and heat set them and trimmed them down. So just popping those on with some foam tape behind. And here is a look at the final 2 cards together. And I definitely prefer the one on the right, but I do really like the colours of the one on the left, even though I think I did one too many colours. If I was going to remake these cards, what I would probably do is take a black marker and colour in the LOVE on the card on the left, because I think that that gets really lost because the background is so busy, and I think that it would look a lot better if you could actually see those letters more. Now for the card on the right, I don't think I would colour in those letters. I think that you can see them a lot more clearly, and that's probably because I only used 3 colours, but also because I let those colours blend together. And I think that if I went ahead and coloured the LOVE on that card, I would end up losing some of that blue, and I really wouldn't want to lose the blue. There isn't enough on there for me. I still would have preferred a little bit more. So I think varying degrees of success with both ways of doing this technique, and definitely some learns for me along the way. And that brings me to the end of my cards for today. So I hope that you found it useful to see 2 different ways of doing smooshing and 2 different results. I will be back with another video for you next week, but in the meantime, I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.